What's up, everybody? Snaggle J here, general manager of the TGS Cincinnati Reds, back with another episode of Big Red Machine. I've got a couple episodes planned here, so I just want to kind of outline what the plan is for the next little bit so you'll know what you're looking for. This episode is going to be more of a 2030 season recap. I guess this is more of a thoughts video. Kind of how I thought the season went, kind of where we're at. I also have some Q&A that we're going to do in this episode based on some of your question submissions. So we're going to go through and we're going to do that as well. I'm not going to be giving reactions to the couple of trades that I've made. So the Cody Mondesi trade and the trade I made with the Mets, the Andrade trade. I'm going to save that for an off-season part one recap this weekend. So we're going to get a big chunk of the offseason in here in the next few days. So I'm going to kind of do like a part one offseason recap. In between there, I'm going to try to do the 2030 tier list. The tier list video from last year was super fun. And I'm going to plan on doing that again. Maybe a little different format than last year, but we'll see. So that's kind of my plan. So this episode, what I really want to focus on is kind of what I learned this year and kind of where I think the team needs to go from here. As you can see, obviously big positives, right? Bottom right-hand corner of the screen, we have our record history. So I took over after this season. So you can see, right, first year, 71-91. Second year, 59-103. It says 0-0 because why would this game work as it's intended to? But as you can see from here, we finished 74-88. So a 15-win improvement from 2029 to 2030, which again, to me, right, is a huge positive. I'll be honest, and something that I'm probably going to say several times throughout the course of this video is I feel really good about where we're at and the path that we're on and kind of what the next 2 to 3 seasons could look like. Obviously, we made a big change last season with the new stadium, getting out of the more doubles-laden Pittsburgh Pirates stadium that we had and into actual Great American. Obviously, we built a team that, we knew could perform offensively. And when you look at, second in runs scored, first in average, third in on-base percentage, second in OPS, fifth in batting WAR, 24 batting WAR is like 7 times what we had the year before. I don't even remember who our best. I think Rico was still our best WAR hitter in 2029. I think he was at like 2. Fourth in home runs. So again, we really harness that offensive thing. Now, obviously, the opposite side of that coin, dead last in runs against, dead last in starters ERA, 12th in bullpen ERA, last in FIP, pitching WAR, defensive efficiency. So the biggest thing for me right now and where my kind of focus is obviously there are 3 facets to the game of baseball. There's hitting, there's pitching, and there's fielding. 2 of the 3 of those lean towards run prevention, and obviously the other one leads towards, runs scored. For me, a lot of what I'm doing this season is I'm trying to close that gap. I think when you look at the teams that are being successful, right, and you look at the Cubs are a great example, right, just off winning the World Series, and I'm not going to sit here and pump DRC's tires for an entire episode, but, first in runs scored, first in runs against, okay? I mean, that's, in the National League, that's as good as you can get, right? Being first in both. He beat us in runs scored by 3. In runs against, I believe he was ahead by a handful or more, but when you are first in both of those, that's going to lead to success. You're going to win 100 games more often than not. I think the big thing for us is, in the stadium that we play in, and now again, I say this with DRC playing in pretty much the same stadium, if I'm not mistaken. So DRC plays in the same stadium as we do. But realistically, we're not going to be a team that finishes first and runs against due to a variety of factors. The quality of pitching out there is not great, especially those who are available. Something I'm going to talk about more in the off-season recap part 1 is the ridiculous prices people are paying for pitching because it is so scarce. So I think the big thing for us is I don't sit here with these illusions of, hey, we're gonna turn this into a 600 runs against team. It's about closing that gap. It's about figuring out, listen, the 3 facets of the game, hitting, pitching, and fielding, how do they relate to our park? So, we scored 818 runs. We gave up 880. If we would have given up 818, what does that look like? Do we go from 74 to 80 wins, 81 wins, 82 wins? When you're looking at 84 wins gets you in the playoffs, I look at it from the standpoint of where can I get those 10 wins? And the middle of that wheel is your park. So a lot of this is, and I've said this in previous episodes, it's learning, it's gathering information, it's gathering data, it's putting a team together that fits the park, makes a lot of sense. So one of the first things I address, and this will be the only time I kind of talk about it, I'll give you my full thoughts about it in the weekend video, but it's one of the reasons why I went out and got Cody Mondesi and was trying so actively to get a big right-handed bat. I'm in a right-hand plus park. Yes, lefties hit well, but righties hit a little better. So I need that in my lineup. You're looking at a team, and again, we're a couple days into the offseason, so you're looking at kind of my in progress roster. But when you look at it, a lot of familiarity, right? Krause, Ledford, Segura, Jones, Dainzer, all guys that were here last year. The only guys we lost were catchers, Giannichini, and I don't even remember who else we had. Hoshiyama, gone, right? Probably not going to bring them back. Caden we traded, so probably not bringing him back. Hoshiyama, probably not bringing back. Everyone else we've made trades for. I think, for me, there's a lot of focus on, can we get a little bit better defensively? And can we find some pitching? I think overall, for me, the season was really, really good from the standpoint of starting to see the fruits of some of the labor. I've often talked about how much effort I put into this and time and really just trying to, asset acquire and starting to see some of those assets produce is just awesome. I mean, you look at, if I go to here and I look at some of my these are my across all levels results. But you look at some of these, right? Rico Segura, a guy we signed to a relatively team-friendly 3-year, $42 million deal. Again, taking advantage of the park, but he hits 47 homers, drives in 122, has 111 runs, got some MVP consideration. Just a great all-around season. And again, when you're getting 5 wins above replacement at $14 million, that's a great bargain, a great value. Fits our park well. I talked about Capono Rotaro in the Discord a little bit. We drafted this guy, and then he went on to go. I mean, he's never going to be a big leaguer, I don't think, but hit 21 homers in 78 games in low rookie after we drafted him. Just a fun guy. But, you look at guys we brought in. Noel Carlson, right? Our first-round draft pick in 2029, up to AA now, looking good. Honestly, probably going to be our second baseman sooner rather than later. We might give him a few more weeks of seasoning. We'll see how the spring goes, but probably going to need a few weeks of seasoning. But, again, playing really well, right? Hitting almost 300, 770 OPS. He hit 20 homers across the course of the season, which if you can get 20 homers out of your second baseman with not atrocious defense. Again, a lot of his innings were played at short, but we're going to probably use him at second in the big leagues as long as Dainzer's around. So, again, an asset that we acquired through, being bad, but still smart draft pick. We got Vince Thompson now, who was our draft pick this year. Kind of struggled. Not going to lie, he did hit 21 home runs in 74 games, which is a plus. So we'll see. I think it's going to be interesting to see how Vinny does in the Winter League. He might go down to the Winter League and might hit 500. You start looking at some of the pieces we brought in. So if I just look at our active roster, the 3-pack of rookies that we had this year, 2 of which we got from the Yankees in the Lincoln Lanu trade. Woody Coons, who absolutely robbed, what's his name? Is it Gabriel Moyo? Gabe Moyo of the Rockies. Listen, Gabe Moyo should have been Rookie of the Year. He pitches in Coors. He went 13-6. He had 5.5 wins above replacement. He should have been Rookie of the Year. Mostly because Coons absolutely fell off in August and September. But had a great year, 29 homers, 98 RBIs, 873 OPS. Again, he was a lot better when you look at the splits. Again, he hit 344 in May, 309 in June, 356 in July, and then hit 350 and 222 down the stretch. He was absolutely lighting the world on fire. Redford Jones, who we got, put him at third base, hit 29 homers, 76 RBIs, had an 805 OPS. The fielding leaves a little bit to be desired. But we'll see. This is not terrible. Obviously, again, negative ZR on the underside of 1,000 efficiency, not great. But again, for what you're getting out of them, great. And then obviously we have Jaden Krause, who was the first draft pick I ever made. 18th overall in 2028. Made his big league debut this year. Again, the knock with Krause is the injuries. He missed 5 days he missed 4 weeks with a rib cage strain, 5 days. So he was hurt 3 separate times, which 2 of which were day-to-day, but still day-to-day over 4 weeks with moderate effect, not great. And actually, that's right. We had the strained oblique before the strained rib cage muscles. He actually had two core injuries going on at the same time. So again, there's some health concerns there. But there's no doubting what Jaden Krause can do with the bat. I think he's capable of a lot more than what he did. But 17 homers, 40 doubles, 58 extra base hits total, finished just 1 steal short of double digits. I really think Krause can be a 300 hitter with 20 homers. He's close on the homers. He's only hit 289. I think a 300 hitter with 20 homers would be great. Probably going to end up moving to one of the corner outfield spots when we're ready to bring Carlson up, but that's a different problem altogether. So, we had 3 rookies, again, that from our asset acquisition process worked out. Another guy who, we said in the beginning, we were going to take the reins off of Everett Ledford this year, and we were going to see what he could do in center field. And he went out and hit 304 with 45 doubles. Couldn't have asked for a better season from Everett Ledford. Again, he's been a guy, we've given him a chance. He played in a bench role in 2029, and we said, you know what? He's going to be our everyday center fielder. Again, negative ZR guy, even with 70 range, not a big arm guy. But again, you're trying to where's that balance? Where's that balance between run prevention and run assistance? It's a tough thing to balance. Would I prefer to have an 80 range guy out there? Would I prefer to have a Lincoln Lanu type out there when he's not hitting? Hard to say. Does that make the scales of justice a little more balanced? Who knows? But again, that's another guy that we brought in. Dainzer, I think, obviously, we were concerned about him reaching the Mendoza line. He got there, right? He got to 207. Awesome. He stole 32 bags. So he's contributing, he's getting on base at 270, which is, could be worse. But he swiped 32 bags, which is nice. And he provides us elite shortstop fielding with 11 ZR. Obviously, the big problem is he dropped 5 range. Got to keep an eye on that. He dropped 5 outfield range as well. So he's starting to start. I mean, he's 22. He's already starting to ripen. I think, when you look at this, obviously on the pitching side, a lot of youth and guys brought in here. The one guy who's missing at the top is Siddle, who's gone. But like guys like Gaspard 23, DeRuin's 24, McDonoug's 24, Boss 24, Guzman 23. All guys getting their first taste of the big leagues. DeRuin, again, you look at, he had an okay season. Obviously, the win record is great, 14-7, but 5.08 ERA. One of the big factors about our team is we do not strike out a lot of guys. And I think that is maybe a bit of a course correction that I need to make, where I went a little too movement heavy. And thinking, okay, well, if I go to these movement guys, they keep the ball on the ground, but then I don't have the defense to make the plays on the ground. That's all part of the learning curve, right? It's all part of the trying to get it together and trying to get it where you are. I think, again, I'm really happy with where we're at. I think the best days of the Reds are yet to come. Obviously, I'm not going to sit here and say, hey, we're going to break 80 wins and contend for a playoff spot next year. But you know what? We've got some money to spend. And, we've already made a couple of additions. I think our lineup, other than missing a catcher, our lineup's ready to rock and roll. And I think our pitchers are going to take a step forward this year. I think our bullpen's in pretty good shape with guys like Coleman Bazin, who had a really nice season, 2.74 ERA, 20-12 shutdown to meltdown rate. And Luke Engel, who was a Rule 5 pick. We get back-to-back luck with Rule 5 picks. And Engel, who's still got some room to go here, I think Engel has potential to be an elite reliever. And even with the missing Dev, 3.68 ERA, he's, striking out 7.7 strikeouts per nine, which is well below his double digits, but I mean, he never pitched above low A. But again, I feel like Engel's a guy that we got in the Rule 5. He's still only 23, lots of control left. Could be a huge piece. So I think that's part of kind of what we're looking at. So as promised, I will answer your questions now. So here's a few questions from our World Series champion, Dr. C. What move that you've made since becoming a GM do you regret? I think the Brennan Murphy extension is probably the one I regret the most. I think that was me really just getting into my head that, he was the best pitcher we had and we needed to keep him, and not really thinking where he fit in. Obviously, we ended up eating close to $30 million of that contract. And I think that's a big one for me. I think that's, one of those deals that pitching being scarce, but like if you're going to spend the money, you got to spend it in the right place. So that's probably the one, well, the move I regret the most. I think there's others. I think a lot of the moves I've made, I'm still nervous about seeing if I'm going to regret them. I think there's, you got to remember, only 3 seasons in the books. So, maybe trading Manny Agilov is a mistake. Maybe trading Isaiah Godoy is going to come back to bite me in the behind someday. But yeah, the Brennan Murphy extension is the big one. The most rewarding aspect of running a team, which is the second question, I think it's just watching things work, and figuring out how to harness more of that, and watching things not work and learning from it. I think OOTP is especially at this level with this high intelligence of a user base, I think you always have to be learning. And I think that's the most rewarding part, is when you do something and it works, or you do something and it fails, and you try to replicate the successes and figure out what led to the failures. That's the most rewarding part. At the end of the day, it's supposed to be fun. It's a video game, right? It's supposed to be fun. But I think that's what makes it fun, is that constantly, again, you're in a league with 32 people or 31 other people who all are really smart about the game and know what they're doing. And I think that makes it really, really fun, is that just that constant information gathering and learning. What is the definition of success in 2031? This is where I get myself into trouble when I get these questions. For me, the definition of success, I'm going to really try to say I'm not going to measure it in terms of wins and losses. I think the definition of success in 2031 is to be better in 2031 than we were in 2030. Do I think that equates to a set amount of wins? Sure. But I think for me, really where I'm at with the team right now and looking a year from now in game, I really just want to continue to build that stable base where we can be a team to contend with in the 2030s. I've said, various times that I am not building this team to win one World Series. We're not going to sell out everything in the farm to win one World Series. I've said, I want to build a team that can be a perennial playoff team year after year and always be in the hunt and just be a good team. And for me, I still think I've had some people say to me privately, that our window is here or our window is opening. I still think our window is a year or two away. I think 2032, 2033, and I think mostly because we need to really build that base of pitching and defense. But for me, again, the definition of success is let's keep kicking the ball down the road. If I finish 74 and 88 again, but we're better at run prevention and we're continuing to have a great offense, and the deals just don't go our way. Again, this is a dice roll game. I think, I think I would still consider that a success. It's all about setting up the team. Now, granted, I'd like to see the win-loss record improve as well, but I'm trying not to hyperfixate on that. If you could pick one AL team to play against in your inevitable World Series appearance, what team would it be? I feel like I have two answers here. So obviously I think what might be a really common answer is Oakland. Sparrow, his team is the measuring stick in the American League based on his historical success. So I think, ideally, if you want to prove that your team is the best, you want to play the best. And at this moment in time, Oakland is that team. I think another team, just to give a second answer, I think Minnesota would be, a team that is on the come up right now. I really think that would be a lot of fun. I think I would love to see Minnesota continue to get better and jump into that, top tier of American League teams. Again, a huge step forward for Minnesota this year. I mean, 98 wins, like that's just crazy. When you look at what they did in previous seasons, which I don't have right here in front of me, but again, that team's on the come up. So I think that those would be two. I think if I had to pick a third, just for the sake of picking a third, I would want to play Houston because I think a Snaggle versus Kidneys World Series would be just something to watch. I think we'd have to do one pitch sims and make it go 4 hours just for the content. If you could restart this year but only change one starting player on your roster, who is it? I really think I'd like to trade a starting pitcher. I mean, pick one. Gus Hadge was a mistake. I really thought, at 34 that Gus Hadge could come in, have a positive impact on the rotation. Obviously, he was a fan interest boost, but he was absolutely just god-awful. From the moment he started to the moment he was done, Hadge was brutal. Again, it wasn't a huge investment for us. We paid him like $2 million. He did get better once he went to the bullpen. But, you look at his numbers as a starter, 5-11 with a 6.55 ERA. Again, he was a lot better. 3.38 ERA as a reliever. I think that would be the one that, if I, with hindsight being what it is, that would probably be the one. couple more questions here. One of my first big moves after taking over for Mushroom was dealing Rentmeister. With the benefit of hindsight, what are your thoughts on that deal? So I mean, with the benefit of hindsight, Rentmeister just won a ring. So, that's a big piece. Obviously, it took a few seasons, but Rentmeister won a ring. And, obviously, that was, DRC's goal when he got him was, hey, we want Calvin Rentmeister here to be a World Series champion, and he got that. I think it's, as this trade evolves and we start moving on from, what happened here, I still think it's a little early to tell. Again, if the league ended right now, obviously the Cubs winning a World Series win that trade. You can't underestimate what Cadman Reeder's impact was, although I think DRC moved on from him, due to contractual stuff. Before, Cadman Reeder's a free agent again, so he didn't really have a big impact on that. But when you look at what we got, I think some of them are, there's still time. Grishaber's still in the minors. He's really struggling. He's bordering on, I think it's getting to the point where we might have to just, he's only 22, so we'll wait and see. But I don't think he's ever going to progress past the minor league. Ed Lehman is just hanging out in the minors. He's hitting pretty well, but he was more of a defensive guy. I think, again, we had some good run out of Manny Agilov. Again, Manny Agilov's with the Mets now, mostly because I just couldn't take the injuries. He could go to New York and hit 325 and help TJ win another World Series, and that'll kill me, but so be it. With Mendoza, Mendoza took a big step forward this year with 17 homers in Double-A, and Jonas Guzman, who I still have faith in. I do. He had a rough major league debut, but again, a lot of that is on me and not building the proper roster. So I think, it's easy for me to look at that trade and say we lost it because DRC won a World Series, 3 years later. But I still think there's time. I still think we have some pieces of that with Guzman and Mendoza that could swing it in our favor. The big thing for me is, would I make that trade again knowing what I know now? Absolutely. Absolutely, I make that trade again, knowing what I know now. No questions asked. It was a trade that needed to be done. We needed to get the ball rolling. Yeah. What do I think the Mexican Slinger and Omoto-san will pull in and which teams will get them? So, I'm assuming by the Mexican Slinger, you're referring to, what is his name? The guy, the guy, what is his name? Sancho Pagan, I believe, is what his name is. Who's being posted from the Mexican League. I feel like Pagan is probably going to get about $20 million a year. Again, I know he's 37. I know there's not a whole lot of stuff there, but a 25-point fan interest boost is a 25-point fan interest boost. And I think that's worth $20 million to somebody with the amount of money that people have around. I think that's worth it to some people. So I would not be surprised if Pagan gets $20 million or more. Omoto's a different animal altogether. And you know what? There's a lot of posturing and talking about Omoto, and people are talking $60 million. Which again, over 6 years, I mean, you're looking at $350 million of commitment. Realistically, I do think Omoto lands in the $50 million range. I think there are teams, given that we know a year in advance he's going to be posted, there are teams that are going to go way easy in free agency this year and save that money for next year, thinking that Tadashi Omoto will change their franchise. Now, obviously, the danger there is, you're tying up a lot of resources into one player who, again, is 5 range away from maybe not being a great shortstop anymore in some people's eyes. But yeah, I think Emoto will get 50 million plus from somebody AAV. I think it's going to happen. Who's been my biggest TCR boom or bust? I don't know if I've had any busts yet. Obviously the TCR. We talked about Brendan Murphy earlier and him just dying immediately after signing an extension. I think from a boom perspective, we really haven't had any. Neil Siddle's probably the closest, with him developing, a whole bunch of stuff all of a sudden in 2028, between 2028 and 2029, just jumping to 80 stuff and getting 10 points of control. I think that's probably our biggest boom. Again, I don't think, we didn't get to see the benefits of that, but he did pitch really well for a while, over a season and a half. That's probably been our biggest boom so far. Bust, I think the bust, we can throw it at Brendan Murphy, but I think our bust is laying in the weeds, waiting to happen. If my biggest prospect went down with a career-ending injury, how would I fill that void? Wow, this one had me in knots when I saw it. Thinking that someone like Jaden Krause goes down with a career-ending injury. I think in that case, you know what? You just got to go to the next man up and figure it out. Obviously, it's a low percentage chance of happening with a career-ending injury, but it can happen. I think that's something, you guys have heard me talk about a lot is, having options and being in asset acquisition. Do I have another Jaden Krause in the system? No. Do I have somebody that could step in there and maybe be a great second baseman? Yeah. I mean, we could go to Carlson. We could go to Rowlands. We could go to, Daniel Estrada's down there laying in the weeds, developing as an 18, 19-year-old. I think, one of the things I've really tried to do is have options at positions. Now, as things happen and people move around, I do start to feel like I'm thinning out the options at some of those spots, and that's concerning. But, we have international free agency. I have another draft coming up where I'll have a top 10 pick. So it would be absolutely devastating to see somebody like Krause go down, but that's part of the game and part of what you need to figure out sometimes and just keep moving forward. So I think for me, it would be, who's the next man up, and let's see what we can do to fill that void. What TGS team do you feel like you're trying to emulate and why? I don't really think I'm trying to emulate anybody. I mean, I could take the easy answer. I want to emulate the Cubs and win 3 World Series in 9 years. I do think, I really would like to emulate any of the teams that are consistent playoff in the hunt. The Atlantas, the Floridas, the Philadelphias, the Cubs, the Athletics, the Mets, the Blue Jays, the Angels, all of those teams that, inevitably come September, they're in the top 6, 7 of the league and contending for a chance at the playoffs. That's who I want to emulate. I don't think I'm necessarily trying to build my team in a particular vein of another team. I don't really look at other teams and say, I want a carbon copy of that roster. But yeah, I mean, obviously, again, the Cubs is an easy one. They've won 3 World Series in 9 years. If I wanted to emulate a team, that would be the one. But I think I'm really just, I'm really trying to build this my way and what I think is going to work. And we have to make adjustments and stuff as we go. What MLB team do you feel takes this approach? Again, same kind of idea, right? I don't think of it in terms of that. I mean, I'm not sure how that relates with how the game works, and the ability to just create a new stadium in the off season and have that shape your roster and how your roster looks. But, I think a big way to look at it is a team like Minnesota, right? Minnesota very much got onto the map by being a hitting first team, a homer first team, offense first, and then just, sorting the pitching out later. So maybe that's probably the closest to us is Minnesota. That's an interesting question though. Anyway, that's going to do it for the Q&A part. Thank you everybody for the Q&As. I appreciate your engagement and helping me make some content here. So again, we have some more episodes coming up soon. We're gonna have the tier list episode hopefully by Thursday, and then next weekend I'm gonna do like probably on Sunday or Monday. I'm gonna do like my first half of the offseason review. We'll talk about the Mondesi trade. We'll talk about the Andrade trade, and talk about any free agent signings that I might be able to finagle between now and then. So thank you guys so much. I appreciate you guys listening to the Big Red Machine. Until next time, keep swinging for the fences.